They say that the Indians did not give us any evidence for Pahalgam. Uh, did the Pakistanis give evidence linking the Afghan Taliban government to the attacks that took place in Orakzai? The same way that the Pakistanis claim that the TTP is operating from Afghanistan, we have actual evidence that the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen and all these other third-rate fellows, they are all operating with the sanction of the Pakistanis. The
Right.
Pakistanis, when we killed some TTP commanders, they were Afghan Taliban people who also joined the funeral prayers. Did that not happen when we took out Jaish-e-Mohammed guys?
You're watching the Gist on Stat News Global. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Today we are going to be discussing the events unfolding on the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. Joining me is Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow with the Observer Research Foundation and one of the foremost authorities on the region, if I may say so. Thank you so much for joining us, Sushant.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, let me take it from the top, Sushant. There's all this hoo-ha happening right now on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. But did this whole thing have to start with Pakistan bombing Kabul? Did it have anything to do with the Afghan foreign minister's visit to India?
Look, the immediate provocation was, of course, the attack that took place inside Pakistan, in which some 12 soldiers were killed. And right after that particular attack, that was in the Orakzai agency, and then right after that attack, there were a couple of other attacks uh, in which some other officers and men were killed. So within a span of about 24-36 hours, there were almost like 2 dozen Pakistan security personnel, mostly military guys, who were killed. So that was the immediate provocation. Now, a lot of people are, of course, linking it up with Muttaqi's visit to India, but I think that was more of a coincidence. Unless it is somebody's case that those attacks were timed with Muttaqi's visit in India, then I don't know. But that's a bit of a stretch uh, because those attacks, if I getting my timing right, happened at the time when the Moscow talks were taking place, in which Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, a number of other countries were already present. So to link it up with Muttaqi's visit to India, like the Pakistanis, and most of these Pakistani Punjabis, they're liars, they're consummate liars. They learned lying from the womb of their mothers. These fellows have made it out to be that uh, the uh, the Kabul attacks took place and Muttaqi visited India, something to that effect. Uh, and they simply do not understand that these visits are worked out weeks and months in advance. These are not visits which happen just at the drop of a hat. But in the Pakistani disinformation sphere, this is how they've positioned it. And what is even more interesting is that they have they have blamed the Afghans for retaliating against the bombing of Kabul and at least half a dozen other places inside Afghanistan on the eastern front with Pakistan. And they've simply glossed over the fact that the Afghan retaliation happened in response to Pakistani bombing attacks, right? So that part they've glossed over, and they have blamed the Afghans for retaliating. The most interesting thing, Ram, to my mind, is that everything that we have been complaining to the Pakistanis and the disingenuity with which the Pakistanis have been replying to our complaints on terrorism, going on for 30-35 years. So, what is the Pakistani logic, right? That we cannot afford this constant war of attrition, that our soldiers, our people being killed by terrorists, and we blame Afghanistan for it. Exactly what we have been saying. But we showed enough patience for over 30 years before we started hitting back. The Pakistanis are showing none of that patience, or you know that strategic patience. They're not showing that. They're saying that now enough is enough. Well, it's enough is enough for India. They say that the Indians did not give us any evidence for Pahalgam. Uh, did the Pakistanis give evidence linking the Afghan Taliban government to the attacks that took place in Aurangzeb? Because the guys who took responsibility for that attack claim that they are based in Pakistan. They are operating from inside Pakistan. Where is the evidence that they are in Afghanistan? Uh, the same way that the Pakistanis claim that the TTP is operating from Afghanistan, we have actual evidence that the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen and all these other third-rate fellows, they are all operating with the sanction of the Pakistanis. The
Right.
Pakistanis, when we killed some TTP commanders, they were Afghan Taliban people who also joined the funeral prayers. Did that not happen when we took out Jaish-e-Mohammed guys? Or we have taken out Lashkar-e-Taiba guys? Did the Pakistan army was the Pakistan army and the local administration and ministers not standing in those funeral prayers, offering those funeral prayers? You name the thing, and this is exactly it's like what is that? I'm forgetting that exact word, but this is like divine retribution in many ways, which is visiting Pakistan uh, for its dissemble, for its lies, for its deceit, for its deception. So that's what's happening.
Hmm. But this rivalry between Afghanistan and Pakistan has been going on for a long, long time now. I mean, particularly over the Duran line. And Pakistan has been pushing back by sending people, refugees back into Afghanistan and stuff like that. So, what exactly, I mean, other than this attack by the TTP on Pakistani soldiers, that also has been happening for a while. So, was this coming, or do you think there is some particular spark that set it off?
No, it was always there. See, that's the you know that is that problem is rooted in the very origins of the Pakistani state in some ways. The Durand Line has always been an issue for the Afghans. The Durand Line was done under duress. They don't accept it. It divided their communities. So they keep challenging it. Very often, the challenge was more at a diplomatic, political kind of a level. It was never militarily pressed. Uh, the Pakistanis, of course, thought that the Taliban would sign on the dotted line. They should have understood that even in 1996, when the Taliban took over Kabul and formed, the kind of whatever government that was, uh, even at that point of time, the Taliban did not sign on to the Durand line. Many Pakistani analysts, there's still some sensible people, mostly not Punjabis, uh, in Pakistan who had warned the Pakistani Punjabi military that listen, you are giving support to the Taliban. Uh, you think that they will be your assets. You think that they will help you against the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. This is the biggest strategic mistake you can commit because the Taliban and the TTP guys are joined at the hip. They're born from the same womb, right? Their origins are the same. Uh, they are two sides of the same coin. And your assumption that the Afghan Taliban are different from the Pakistani Taliban is utterly spurious. But that exact spurious line was given by all these fellows today, these Pakistani Punjabi generals and the rest of their camp followers, the Najam Sethis and others. All these guys are today saying that very same thing, that no, these are one and the same. These were all the guys who earlier on uh, were very insistent that the Afghan Taliban are different from the Pakistani Taliban. So this is the problem that the Pakistanis have called upon themselves. Secondly, purely on doctrinal and theological matters, the Pakistanis claim that we don't accept the Islam of what the Taliban is, right? That is not Islam. Well, who is going to decide what is Islam? Nobody has been able to decide. Islam is what the ruler of the day decides it to be. Uh, Islamic jurisprudence is what that guy decides it to be, or that regime decides it to be. So just as the Pakistanis call these guys Khwarijes, uh, using a term from Islamist terminology, uh, and it's a disparaging way of referring to these people. Uh, there are many among the Taliban, including people from who are not exactly part of the Taliban pantheon in the strictest sense of the word, but groups like Hafiz Gul Bahadur's Ittihadul Mujahideen Pakistan. These are guys who say that the Pakistani state is not an Islamic state. It's an apostate state. These are people who do not who have who have brought in new things into the pristine Islam, and they've distorted Islam. So they accuse the Pakistanis of that. And this is now becoming a fight between two competing versions of Islam. And from our point of view, it doesn't matter because it's not as though the Pakistani version of Islam is well disposed towards us. So all those idiots in India, the useful idiots in India, uh, who are saying that why are we talking to the Taliban, and we can make do with Pakistan, we share the same language, etc. All that blah blah which comes with it for apologists of Pakistan. They either have no idea of the line of thinking in Pakistan, the discourse inside Pakistan, especially among people who matter, the policy making circles, Pakistan Army and others, and all that they need to do is listen to that infamous speech of the Pakistan Army Chief, Asim Munir. So these idiots out here, the KTs and others, if you want, I can name them. I don't have any problems. You might. But all these wired up guys, these are people who have been, trying to sell this line that no, the Pakistanis are these nice cuddly fellows, and they are people like us, etc., etc. When their own general, again, on whom all the Pakistani Muslims, Punjabi Muslims are swearing by and consider him to be the greatest general after Khalid and Salahuddin. These idiots in India who are swearing by him, uh, all they need to do is look at his speech, where he said the Hindus and Muslims are two completely different people. We have completely different traditions, customs, etc., etc. Culture is different, everything is different, right? So, on what basis are these useful idiots in India saying that these are our brothers? They're not. So, as far as I am concerned, as an Indian, as a Hindu living in India, for me, I don't have a dog in this fight. Whether the Taliban win or the Pakistanis win, how do I care? It's not as though Pakistanis are very well disposed towards me. They will butcher me and massacre me and carry out a genocide of Hindus if the day they get a chance. I'm not entirely convinced that the Afghans will do the same thing. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, how do I care? And as
Hmm.
far as antediluvian practices, the misogyny of the Afghan Taliban is concerned, I don't have to agree with it. That's their customs, their life. Uh, I don't endorse it. I don't agree with it. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying I abhor it. But then, if somebody was to come and tell me how I should run my culture and my society and impose their values on me, I don't want it. Maybe my society will evolve on its own and I'll accept it. Maybe 10
Right.
years from, maybe 50 years from now. I would give the same latitude to the Taliban, even though, like I said, I don't agree with it, I don't accept it, I abhor it, but I can live with it as long as it's not imposing on me.
Hmm. Among the many sort of conspiracy theories floating around, one has to do with the fact that this happens right after the sort of sudden spurt of love for the Americans and Afghanistan's rejection of an American attempt to get Bagram. You know, how valid is that kind of a thing floating around?
Yeah, I don't know how this whole Bagram thing came. See, this has been there in the mind space of Donald Trump for many years, right? Even at that point of time, when the Doha Accords were being negotiated, even at that point of time, there have been some sketchy reports about the Americans hoping to retain Bagram to have a toehold in Afghanistan. But then Donald Trump lost the election, Biden came in, and he said, forget about it. Let's move on. Now, somebody must have reminded Donald Trump that let's talk about Bagram. Um, the Look, anybody who says that this is related to Bagram is not understanding that uh, ever since the Taliban came into power in 2021 and the Pakistanis announced that they had won another great victory and defeated another superpower, broken the chains of slavery, all that nonsense, which you keep hearing from the Pakistanis, uh, the premature jubilations. What Within days of the Taliban taking over, it was very clear that there will be constant tensions between the Taliban and Pakistan. The TTP was already very active. The TTP did not become active in 2021. The TTP, which had been at one point of time uh, put to run, had regrouped, but it was limiting its attack on Pakistan and focusing its attacks inside Afghanistan against the NATO forces or the US led regime, US controlled regime, whatever you want to call it. I'm not getting into the terminology of it. So they were already very active. They were fighting because these guys were realizing that, the crunch time has come and we need to settle Afghanistan. So they were not focusing on Pakistan at that. But 2021 comes, many of their imprisoned people, incidentally, the Pakistanis, that is why I say they're consummate liars and they are self deceivers. The Pakistanis for 20 years accused the Afghan government, the then Afghan, erstwhile Afghan regime, of sponsoring the TTP and being hand in glove with the TTP. India sponsored, Afghan government sponsored, NDS sponsored, all that nonsense you would have heard, right? But that same regime had imprisoned over 5,000 TTP guys who had been arrested in various encounters, right? These guys were put in prison by them. The day the Taliban came into power, they released all those 5,000 guys. Okay? That was the first big shock for the Pakistanis. And as you go along, the because Afghanistan had already been won, the TTP guys, of course, moved back into Pakistan and started attacking in Pakistan. And the Afghan Taliban were also joining them. Number one, cadres. I'm not saying the leaders, but the cadres, the foot soldiers, because they had all fought together. They had a fraternity of their own. These guys also were joining the ranks of the Pakistani Taliban, partly because they don't see them as any different. And those attacks started mounting. So it was very clear from many videos and other things of how the Afghan Taliban foot soldier had nothing but utter contempt for the Pakistanis. So this problem goes back there, and it has been constantly ramping up. Okay, despite multiple talks, assurances, various efforts being made, everything aside, it has only escalated. So to link it up with suddenly Donald Trump mentioning Bagram, I think it doesn't make sense to my mind unless somebody convinces me otherwise. I've not heard of any convincing argument as yet. One. Secondly, somebody needs to inform me as to how you propose to get Bagram. The Taliban will not be caught dead handing over Bagram to you, no matter how much money you give them. It's not going to happen. So if Donald Trump thinks it's another New York real estate deal where if he throws a few $100 million or $1 billion, he can just simply pick up the property and do whatever the hell he wants to do with it. This is not New York City real estate market. He should stop thinking like a thekedar and a contractor and a realtor, uh, in this matter. This is a serious business. So the Afghans are not, or at least the Taliban are not going to hand over Bagram to the Americans, uh, where it becomes a kind of independent enclave of sorts within Afghanistan. That's not going to happen. How will you make it happen? Can the Pakistanis pressurize the Afghans to do it? I doubt it very much. Impossible, right? Uh, the only option is that either you go in for a regime change inside Afghanistan, which means another civil war, which means Afghanistan, more death and destruction and devastation in Afghanistan. And if it's not a regime change, it means an invasion. And then you
Absolutely.
occupy that area and hand it over to the Americans. But then you get sucked into the quicksand that is Afghanistan. So how do these Ivy League educated geniuses in the Trump administration and the less or half educated Pakistani generals hope to get Bagram and hand it over to the Americans? I would love to be educated.
While we are talking on the Americans too, let's stick to that for the second. How are you? What are your views on this sudden spurt of love and affection between the Americans and the Pakistanis?
Look, in a realistic world, it makes no sense, right? What does Pakistan bring to the table? Maybe mercenary force, but if you want mercenaries, you have Blackwater or XC Corp or whatever that was called. You have a number of those kind of organizations. Why do you need Pakistan? Um, so it in a realistic framework, in a sensible framework, I should say, it doesn't make any sense. Uh, Pakistan brings nothing to the table, but Pakistan has apparently sold to the Americans that they're sitting on a gold mine. It started with, I think, $1 trillion worth of minerals, went on to $6 trillion, and I think the last I heard was some ridiculous amount, 16 or $40 trillion or something like that. So the Pakistanis are, uh, the entire Sheikh Chilli series must have been written keeping the Pakistani Punjabi Muslim in mind. He is the quintessential Sheikh Chilli. He will just conjure up figures and imagine, and then lie down thinking, okay, fine, now I have $10 trillion worth of stuff, so I can have fun. Let us see the minerals when they come out. Will they come out? As of now, from what we have heard, that gift which was presented to Trump, you would have seen those pictures of Hassan Munir handing over, like
Yes.
during Diwali we give pista and other stuff to people. Uh, they are giving rare earth minerals. They're presenting it to Trump. Apparently, those were bought off the market and then packaged and given. It's not as if they were mined and given to the Americans.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of ridiculous. And the American, I don't know, it tells you about the decline of the United States that you have this kind of an administration uh, which doesn't listen to any professional opinion, doesn't listen to anything sensible, lives in a world of its own make believe. Um, so they have apparently bought into that. The third is on anti terrorism cooperation, which is again bizarre because there are very, very credible allegations by not only the Baloch but also by the Taliban, the Afghan Taliban, that Pakistan is actually, um, in a sense, having this marriage of convenience with the ISKP, and that in parts of Balochistan, the ISI tried to set up the ISKP, and these are parts of Balochistan which are very troubled, very restive because the Baloch freedom struggle is at its peak in some of those areas where they tried to form camps of ISKP so that these ISKP guys could be used both against the Baloch freedom fighters as well as against the Taliban, both the
Right.
Pakistani and Afghan Taliban, right? And these would be safe havens within Pakistan. And apparently, these camps had come up with the connivance and complicity of the ISI and the Pakistani authorities. They tried to keep it under the carpet, but obviously, you can't. These things have a bad habit of coming out. Uh, so there are serious. If the Americans now believe that ISKP is something that the Pakistanis will fight, it's bizarre. After 20 years of treachery, if the Americans still feel that the Pakistanis will actually fight against ISKP and not use the ISKP, they're mistaken. Again, the American mind is not able to reconcile the fact that the Pakistanis are have such low cunning, I would call it, that they will have this marriage of convenience with the ISK, where they will allow the ISK to operate against their enemies, knowing full well that somewhere along the line there will be some clashes between them and the ISK also. And it's not something which is a deal breaker for them.
Hmm.
That will, but which is okay, fine. That's part of the game. That's collateral damage. That will happen. The Americans cannot understand this is how the Pakistanis think and this is how they operate. So they will again make a fool of themselves as they have over the last 80 years. Um, and that is the only thing which I can understand of why they are getting into this. Otherwise, in terms of economic potential, in terms of scientific and technological potential, what does Pakistan offer?
What about rumors that Trump himself has interest in crypto and stuff like that through Pakistan,
Yeah,
family
that is
interest?
no, that is of course very much at play. That and a lot of people within the United States system as well as inside Pakistan have both marveled and mocked at the ease with which uh, the most powerful office in the world can be bribed through his associates and relatives. That you give them sweetheart deals. Um, these are not really going to take off, I can assure you. Crypto mining is a completely different ball game altogether. In any case, what is crypto? Uh, it's it's just something notional. It's there up
Hmm.
in the air, not backed by anything. Uh, yes, it has become a store of value of sorts. It has become a medium of exchange, but its intrinsic value is what? Nothing. Uh, so they have successfully managed to sell this or bribe the American administration or at least the Trump family and its associates um, that this is a sweetheart deal that we can give to you. Some of the Trumpians who had opened the doors are seen as fly-by-night operators who probably have made their buck and moved on. When
Before
the
I before I sort of ask you to look into your crystal ball about what happens next on the Afghan-Pakistan thing, there is this strong perception that somehow or the other Pakistan seems to be winning the information war, particularly over, let's say, Operation Sindoor and vis-a-vis Afghanistan. How valid is that argument? Is there a lack of thing on our side, or how? I mean, do you really believe that is the case?
on Op Sindoor, I am of the view that we botched it. Uh, all the accomplishments of the armed forces uh, and the fact that we handled the diplomacy of it reasonably well. I think it is in the information domain that it was a dismal failure.
Hmm.
They just didn't know how to handle the information
Hmm.
our side. So I am of the view that it was very, very badly handled, very poorly handled. Uh, it was done very, very late. Whatever was done very late. It wasn't timely. It was very 20th century um, communication skills, holding press conferences once in a day and not even then giving information when, this is the age of Twitter, instant communication. Press conferences, who goes to press conference anymore? It's passe. How
Mhm.
does that, how does a press conference create a narrative anymore? It doesn't. Not in the way we are doing it, once a day kind of a thing. Because Kargil, it worked because Kargil was 20th century. Right? It doesn't work today. It's 25
Mhm.
years from that time. The world of communication has changed. But you don't get it. And then when
Mhm.
you point out, you say that, the armies are supposed to fight wars, they're not supposed to create narratives. Well, creating narratives is part of war. Somebody needs to tell them this. To say that the other side knows what we have done, we don't need to keep talking about it. But if that's your idea of how, communication wars are fought, good luck to us. You can win the most resounding victory and yet lose it in the perception battle. And
Mhm.
the Pakistanis lose on ground and yet try and show that we actually have won something. So we've not
Mhm.
understood, we've not understood, we don't game how the communications of the other side will work. We don't game it, we don't prepare for it, we don't have any ready counters for it. By the time we start countering it, it's weeks and months later, very badly botched up.
Let me just quickly ask you, if you were to look into a crystal ball, given the kind of almost warlike situation that's prevailing on the Afghan-Pakistan border, do you see, I mean, it escalating further, or do you see it going back to their role? I mean, what exactly do you see happening over the next?
I think it'll ebb and flow. I, 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 I don't think even the Pakistani Punjabi is that stupid that he'll enter Afghanistan. Okay?
Hmm.
Um, because that is a quagmire he can't handle. Uh, will they carry out punitive raids? But if they do that, then there will be a pushback, which means that this entire region will get destabilized, continue to get destabilized. But there is also no option which the Pakistani has, to be fair to them. Uh, what are their options realistically? That either you go in or you fight these guys in your own territory through intelligence based operations, which they've been doing for many, many years, but they haven't been successful. In fact, uh, despite all those operations, the footprint of the Taliban has only increased. And they are now able to operate all the way from POGB uh, up north to all the way down, to the coast of Balochistan.
Right.
Uh, so that hasn't worked. So frankly, if you look at the realistic options, it seems that it's a very long war of attrition, which will also need to be fought at the political and at an ideological level, which is where all the problems come in. Now, it's very easy for the Pakistani Foreign Office to question the legitimacy of the Afghan Taliban. But what is the legitimacy of Shahbaz Sharif?
True.
What is the legitimacy of the Pakistan Army Chief? Is he an elected man? How can a country which swears by an idiot like Asim Munir, right? Who, I go back to that old speech of his on the two
Yes.
nation theory, Hindu, Muslim,
Absolutely.
Islam, etc., etc. All that nonsense he keeps spouting all the time to burnish his credentials as the new Salahuddin or the new Khalid. Uh, what is the ideological clarity that you are trying to fight the Islamists, uh, but you yourself are not even a closet Islamist, you are an open Islamist. Only with some degrees of difference in what you believe in and what the other guy believes.
Hmm.
So where is that clarity? And if you don't have that, then how do you fight this war the way it needs to be fought? You can't. And then
Hmm.
you have no political stability. Forget about political legitimacy. You have no political stability. There are million mutinies taking place in Pakistan because of the kind of oppressive political system which you have, which has shut up the media. The media is completely, uh, it's either a parrots, they're either parrots who parrot the line given to them, uh, or they are completely in the payroll of the Pakistan army. They, these are people who will prostrate themselves before captains and majors.
True.
So, but what is what is in their store that they'll be able to put up this fight? Yeah, maybe
Hmm.
they'll get some money from the Saudis, Americans, and others, but that does not really solve the problem.
True. So, does India need to be worried about the outcome? As you said, you're not bothered what they do, but I mean, do we have
No,
reason to
because it
concern?
doesn't make a look for me. It doesn't matter. I might, maybe I'm wrong, but might have a better chance uh, with the Taliban and with the Pashtuns, because I don't see any hope in hell of being able to deal with these treacherous Pakistani Punjabi Muslims. It's not going to be possible. You know,
Hmm.
they have just too many hang-ups. Uh, they're very inferiority struck compared to, most of them are neo converts anyways. So you know they're very inferiority struck. They are far more radicalized. They're far more bigoted than any of the other people who can deal. So frankly, for me, it's a choice between two bad options. But one of the bad options might just turn out to be somebody I can hope to live in peace with. But I with these guys, 80 years I've not been able to live in peace with.
True. True.
You know, unless you buy the nonsense which a Najam Sethi sells to you, or any of these other jokers who come on Pakistani television who sell to you, unless you buy that nonsense where they pretend that they're very liberal, enlightened, moderate, etc., etc., they're not. They are all of that in a certain context, not when it is related to India. Forget India, when it's related to Hindus. And
Hmm.
have they given up any opportunity to target us, to harm us, to damage us, anything, where they said no, this is off the table? No. So I cannot live in peace with Pakistan as it's currently constituted.
Hmm.
So for me, I have to, and this is something which I keep saying, but you know, there is such myopia in um, the strategic circles in India that nobody ever learns the lessons of history. We really need to build up our military and security and defense sinews like never before, and across the spectrum. So from extremely low tech, manpower based security to state of the art high tech security. We need
Hmm.
to be on all sides of the spectrum because our challenges are such. And
True.
we are unfortunate enough to live in a neighborhood where our western border will always be destabilized in one form or the
True.
other.
True. So, on that note, I'm afraid we have to bring this interview to an end.
You
I do
can't say
hope
on
the
that,
people.
you can't say on that happy note because it's not a happy note.
I didn't say happy. I said on that note.
I know. But that's why I said that
but
you normally one
but
finishes off at happy note, but in this case, there's no
no, what I
happy note.
meant was that I hope people who matter in this particular thing, the people you are referring to, are listening, and I hope it knocks some sense into them.
So,
I
so
wouldn't hold my breath, but
let me end with something which uh, uh, a much late and lamented person, my guru, whom I used to refer to. I don't know if you
Mhm.
knew him, Pastor Arvind Dev. Uh, he had once told me, but that was when writing was the flavor of the times. He had told me that, listen, what you write, nobody will read. If they read, they will not understand. And if by some chance they understand, they will not do anything about it. Nowadays, because it's the visual media, what we say, what we talk, nobody will watch. If they watch, they will not understand. If they understand, they will not do anything about it. So it's okay. You and I had a good conversation. Let's end it.
I well, I hope you're wrong, but let's see what happens with this. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. And I really hope A, that you're wrong about what you just said, and B, that
I hope
you
I
know,
am wrong too, but
yeah. So thank you, Sushant.
bye.
That was Sushant Sareen from the URF, giving us his own irrepressible views about the situation on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, and of course what it means for us. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition of The Gist, and I look forward to having you again. Till then, this is Ramananda Sengupta.